Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Got a big project. Behind me, 2013 Ford Flex with the 3.5 Ecoboost. We're gonna be replacing the water pump, the timing chain, guides, tensioners, that whole thing. Let's get started. Okay, let me give you a quick rundown of events. Give you the skinny. We're gonna pull off the serpentine belt and get that crank pulley off first. That's gonna be the hardest to get off. Once that's off, we'll proceed. We're gonna pull off both valve covers, then the timing cover. Once the timing cover is off, then everything is internal after that. We're gonna jack the vehicle up, put it on jack stands, and pull the tire off. So we're gonna see what we can do without removing the whole fender well. We're just gonna remove this right here. It's just a series of clips. Having a pair of pliers like this is really handy, and then a Phillips screwdriver for some of them. Okay, now let's see if we can bend this just enough out of the way to get to our crank bolt. Honestly, it might be easier just to remove the whole thing, because we'll need to get to some other bolts back there. Just give us a little more room, a little more access. We're gonna continue with our clips. Then there's a couple really small screws on the side. We'll get those as well. I'll move you back a little. These small ones are a 7/32. I think that's everything. There we go. Not too bad. Now we got all the room we want. Let me zoom you in. Our crank bolt is an 18 millimeter. Let's see if we can bust it loose. Yeah, not too bad. Just put that in, a couple of threads. Let's pull our belt off. Let me show you the belt. So right there is the belt tensioner. It looks like a 3/8 ratchet end clockwise. That'll get our belt off. All right, so a little 3-jaw puller, and it's pulling on the inside, not on the outside rim. But on the inside, it's gonna pull that way. Our next move is to drain our coolant. So we'll go ahead and remove our skid plate. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these little twist clip things. And then the whole thing will fall down and we'll just slide it back out of the way. Our petcock or our drain should be on the passenger side. All right, there we are with our drain. Just lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, and you should be good to go. We'll just let that drip while we're doing other things up top. Now up top, we're gonna pull the battery negative cable off first. Just tucked out of the way, and then we'll pull off our engine cover. All right, let's tackle this intake manifold. All the electrical connectors, we just push, pull. If they have clips, we'll pop those clips out. These little retainers, again, having a pair of pliers like this, that definitely makes it easier. Not necessary, but easier. There we go. These wire connectors, you just push the wire in, and then it pops out. Now, let me show you what just happened. The little weather packing right here, it came out of the plug. If that ever happens to you, it's not a big deal. Just push it right back in the plug. We want to make sure all our weather stripping is good, or our weather pack. There we go, perfect. Just disconnect this. We have these hoses here. It looks like it just pops off right here. Maybe it doesn't have to come off. We could just twist it out of the way, then this whole thing comes up. It's good enough. 10 mil bolt. So you're just looking for all the electrical connectors, anything that's attached. That's all we're doing. This back here, roll the body. Now this has a red clip. You just push the red clip out, and then you just pinch like everything else. Same with this one here. Okay, good. Pull off our turbo hose here. Disconnect map. 8 mil. Sometimes these are on there pretty tight. Just move them around, maybe a screwdriver or a pick to get underneath the clamp just to break it free. There we go. Maybe one more. Perfect. Now that should pop off. There. Okay, nice. Fold that out of the way. Just keep looking. So we got these, the yellow, you push in and pull. So that's that one. This gray, it has a tab that you can pull aside and bring out, and then that should come off like that. Let me show you that a little closer on this PCV valve here. You see that? So it's just this little tab here, you push out. So that's how you get the gray ones. Now these white ones, you have to push up. So it's not down on the white, but there's actually underneath it. Let's see if we can kind of flip it over a little and get a pick. I'll show you that once I get it off. There we go. So this one, you pop up, so it fits in like that. I don't know if you can see that, but this white tab here pops up. You push on these little clips from underneath. So that's out of the way. Let's see what else. I think we're clear on that side. Hop up and look over. So just the purge valve, it's just resting. There we go. Okay, so we got all of that out of the way. Now sometimes these little looms are brittle and will start to crack and break. That's okay, but we'll want to vacuum it out before we pull the manifold off so none of that debris gets inside the engine. It looks like the only other thing I have is this turbo hose here. So I'll disconnect it from this side. 8 mil here. I'll use a pick to get in between the hose. That should pop off, easy peasy. Tuck that down. Got this bigger clamp, pull that off, and and then we got this little clamp here, or a little hose in the front. And just on all these hoses, I'm just getting a pick in between. There we go, perfect. This should slide up just out of the way enough. Now the wiring harness underneath it does have one little retainer up here. It's like a tannish cream color. Oh, my tool doesn't quite, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so now, is that out of the way? All right, that takes care of everything from here over. I'll move the camera over to this side. We'll have to remove this box, the thermostat, and a few other small things on this side. And then we'll get the vacuum out and we'll be ready to pull it. So on the box, we got this connector here. Push and pull, let me see. Okay, all right, 8 mil. Couple of clips, gets this off. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we want to pull the thermostat housing off. It's just two, 8 millimeter bolts. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 hoses to pull off that side. And then this harness, we just want to get a little more wiggle room on the harness. There's a connector right here. Pull that off. Make sure that doesn't connect. I'm just gonna stuff it in the cloth here. All right, and then we could just pull up on the harness. It's connected, the studs for the valve cover, they have little harness retainers. Just pull up, should be good. Just to get a little more flexibility on this thing. It's a pretty stiff harness. You can use a little pry bar on this end over here. There we go. Okay, so far so good. Yeah, that's everything. So that's just a really stiff harness, but it might be perfectly fine for when it comes time to pull the manifold. We'll just pull the thermostat out. All right, that's stuck in there pretty good. So we'll leave it in, we'll pull it out later. Now's a good time to replace the thermostat if you're doing this whole job. So we'll just get those hoses the best we can. Get a pick, and I'm just using a pick like this, just a normal angled pick. Just get a flat screwdriver and push them off. These are the 2 heater hoses. There might still be a little coolant in them. So just keep that in mind as you're pushing them off. Use something with a little more handle to it. Okay, so there's 2. I got 2 more. Starting to get a tool for those bottom ones. For that one furthest down, I'm having a hard time getting a pair of pliers on. So I have this tool here. You can kind of just put it in and then squeeze from back here so you don't have to worry about your handle getting in the way of anything. There we go. I'm sure you could get it without this, but man, it made it a lot easier. Do the same thing with the pick. Get under there. The pick just breaks it free from the metal. That's all you're using it for. Sometimes you can just use a pair of pliers and kind of twist it and it'll break free that way. Either way. All right, perfect. Whew. Those 2 bottom ones, a little struggle, but we got them. I think that is it. So let me get a vacuum. We'll vacuum all around the intake manifold and then we'll pull those bolts off. They are 8 millimeter. So there's a little wad of pasta noodles back there. Kind of funny, like a mouse cooking some pasta. Okay, 8 millimeter. Let's see, I'll get a deep 6-inch extension. All right, let's see if we got everything. There is this coolant hose over here that has to come off. It's just one clamp. It's the big one. Looks like that goes all the way through and connects to the other side. Okay, there we go. Well, it looks like our fuel line does have to come off. Let me show you real quick what I'm dealing with. You can see right in here, hopefully that lighting is good enough, but it hits on this fuel line, so we just have to move that fuel line. Eventually we will be disconnecting it, but not right now. Should just be an 8mm. You just want to pull that little bracket off. I think that'll move out of the way enough for us. Yeah, perfect. Okay, what are we hung up on now? It's just this harness at the moment. There we go. Perfect. We will put some rags in these holes so nothing falls in them. So next we're gonna work on this back valve cover. It'll be kind of the same thing. We're just looking for what is connected to it. Our electrical connectors have to pull our coils off. Let me re-angle you probably in a better spot. Let me see what you guys are looking at. Okay, so what do we need to pull off? Let's get this tube the rest of the way out of the way. We got this electrical connector up here, and we have 2 hose clamps in the back. You'll be able to see them pretty easily. One is an 8mm and the other is just a pair of pliers. On our ignition coils, it's just a red tab that gets pushed back to unlock it, and then you just push like normal. A little screwdriver or pick helps with those tabs. All right, and then just look for harness connectors too, or harness clips, holding it to the valve cover. We'll pop those off. There's one over here. I think once I get that one off, there we go. And then we got, looks like a cam position sensor. Undo that, okay. This thing is still super stiff. Wish it wasn't so stiff. There we go. That helps a little. I'm kind of limited because over here there's it's like a ground strap. There's another one here. Okay. Now our VVT solenoid in the front. Let's remove this, our PCV system. Let's see what size that is, 8mm. Yep. Just trying to make room to get this off, but I'll just use a little pick. There we go. Okay, and then down here is just where the harness goes over the top of a stud. Probably makes assembling super easy, but man, disassembling, those things are ridiculous. All right, got it. Holy cow, that was challenging. Okay, want to say I just have the coils. Let's do that real quick. So all the boots popped off the coils. Hopefully I can get down there with a pair of pliers and pop them off, but usually they self-destruct at that point. Okay, 10mm. I think we can get all of them, and everything is disconnected. Oh, 8mm back here. This hose, just a little 8mm holding it there. Hopefully it's flexible enough to come off of that. Let's disconnect it from here. They'll be independent of each other. There we go. Now this valve cover is symmetrical, so the ones in the back line up exactly with the ones in the front, except just one on the other side of the VVT solenoid. It's kind of the exception, but otherwise, if you're looking for it on the other side, it's just right where the one is on this side, go directly back and you'll find it. I think that's it. I don't see any in the middle. Let's just pop up on it. Let's see where we can pop up on it safely. Here in the front. And there is RTV in the front on both sides, so feel a little sticky. Like we need another pry spot. There we go. So the front has to make it up and over the VVT solenoid. See if we can get that. And then the back, it's just this harness kind of sucks. I think that's it. There we go. No problem. Peel off the rest of the valve cover gasket. I'm gonna drape this with some towels. Okay, perfect. Looking good. Let's do the front. All right, moving on to the front. So we have our high pressure fuel pump. That does need to come off. We got our cam, or our VVT solenoid, I mean. We'll undo that. Then we just got our electrical harness. So just like the other side, we're just looking for what's connected. So this whole side has the harness connected to it. It's really not a good way to pop those off. They're Very annoying. We have this that can come up. Okay. Right here on the front, let me get that size. It's a 13 mil. Pulls off a little plastic cap where our cover snaps onto. And then under that, looks like an 8 mil, deep 8 mil. Holds on a little hose here for our turbo. I think our turbo oil line does have to come off from the engine, but let me consult the manual for that. In the meantime, we got our PCV stuff. Just pop that off and out of the way. All this is done. Pull this up and out of the way. So now we just need to know why. Oh, right here, this one's perfect. And this one here. Unplug our pressure regulator. Okay, we'll do our coils real quick. That should be enough out of the way. All right, let me look at the manual for that oil cooler hose. Okay, so it does not say you have to disconnect it anywhere else except that one retainer. So, there you go. So just use your muscles and pull it up and off. Okay, making progress. Now we have our ignition coils. We'll pull those off, and then our high pressure fuel pump. I want to say that's it. I'll twist these out. Okay, just like the other side, all the boots came off. So I'll have to tackle that later. Now for our high pressure fuel pump, we have an 8 mil here. Let's just bust that loose real quick. And we want these high pressure lines. There's 3 nuts we have to pull off, 1 here, and then 2 on the rail. This one here, this flexible hose can stay on, but we just want these hard lines off. Let me see what size they are. Okay, it is a 17 millimeter. We want to get a rag, so put this on, rag over it, because there still may be a little residual fuel pressure inside, and we'll crack it loose. Yeah, a little sprayed out, not a whole lot. Okay, we'll just want to soak all this up. Perfect. And we'll do that to the other side, these 2 lines. Exact same thing, just in case there's any kind of pressure. Now there shouldn't be after this is cracked, but we're just being safe. Nice. And 1 more. All right, perfect. Now there may be a little residual fuel in these lines, so soak it up with the rag. That way we're not breathing in this fuel the rest of our repair. Nice. That's it. Our pump bolts are T45 Torx. We'll just loosen up one side, loosen up the other side. Now this should be spring loaded on the cam, so we'll kind of walk it off a little on either side. There we go. And get another rag just in case there's fuel inside, just some residual. Okay, and we'll just lay that over there, out of our way. Okay, that's it. Let's pull off all our 10 mils. Okay, find a spot to pry on it. Looks like right here. I don't really give you too many places to pry on. Really, it's just breaking that RTV in the front. I think it's just the gasket. RTV in the front, plus this is the first time these valve covers have been off. So the gas is just really stuck to the head. That was it. We didn't forget anything. It was just super sticky. There we go. Come off the front. Gotta pull that out. Don't forget that. Good thing it is flexible, so it didn't bend or anything. So, but pull this out. There we go. Pull the gasket rest of the way off. Now we'll be getting new valve cover gaskets and new intake gaskets. So if you're doing this project, just make sure you get those ahead of time. Now some rags over the top. Nice. Now let's work on our front cover. I'm gonna take a quick water break. Actually, I'm gonna take a quick lunch. And when we come back, we'll get this front cover off. We're making good progress. Because of the space issue pulling off that front cover, filming's not gonna be the best. So let me pull you over to the manual. So we wanna remove the belt tensioner. We also want to remove this roll restrictor. I may try to get without removing it, we'll see. And then drain the oil, pull off our crank pulley, which we already did. This is how they're having you do it, 3-job puller like we did. Pull the front seal off. We're not gonna do that now. We're gonna do that when it's off. It's a lot easier once it's already off the vehicle. O2 sensor connector, both sides, front and back. And then we have our engine mount that we wanna pull off as well. So we want a jack underneath. Now this right here are where all the bolts are. So if you need, pause here or refer back to this as you're pulling off each bolt. But these are all the bolts that need to come off. So I'm gonna get that front cover off camera. It's pretty straightforward. If there is anything that hangs me up, I'll definitely turn the camera on and show you. Otherwise, there's really not a whole lot to remove at this point. The valve covers were the hardest part. We do want to jack underneath the engine just to hold it up, keep it supported while we remove that engine mount off. So hopefully the next time I'll see you, I'll be pulling out that cover. All right, so even if you can't see it, I'll just try to explain what I'm doing. You can get under, there's another hose right here. Looks like a coolant hose we're gonna get off. Now I'm pulling off the tensioner from underneath. They are 8mm bolts. There should be 3 of them. So 1 bolt you get from up top, the other 2 you get from down below. Now I'm putting the jack under the engine. You want to put a block or a folded piece of cardboard between your jack and the oil pan just to protect it. Put a little pressure on it. I'm gonna pull this mount off. So the 4 bolted to the engine are a 15mm and the 3 bolted to the frame are an 18mm. If your engine drops just a smidge, that's okay. That's what the jack's for. Those are really hard to get out, but we got them. So let me show you what happened. This one right here was super hard to get, and then all of a sudden, boom, it zipped right off. Sweet, I thought. Got the other 2, sweet. These are Loctited in. They're beefy bolts. They were really hard to get out. This one though, did not come out, and let me show you. So underneath, it's a through bolt, and right here is the nut. Well, the nut is just welded onto the frame, and it broke. So the nut broke, or the weld broke from the frame, so now it's just spinning. So I have to figure out a way to cut this. No big deal. Well, finding a way to cut it is the big deal, but having to cut it off, if we can, is no big deal because I'll just put a through bolt with a nut on this end. Because that's all this is just a nut that's welded to the frame. We'll get our own nut and a new through bolt once we get this off. That'll be the challenge. So I think this is gonna work, or at least I'm gonna give it a try and I hope it works. I have vice grips holding it up here so it doesn't spin down below. And I think I can get a Sawzall right here and just through at this angle, just through this hole perfectly. So I'm not hitting any of the metal, just the bolt. And those vice grips will just hold it from spinning. Oh, I'll let you know how it goes. Whew, got it. So I was able to get it with the Sawzall. I don't know if you can see in there, but I cut most of the way in and was able to break it with a hammer and just back and forth until the metal gave. And then inside still looks good. So that'll just be a through bolt for our next bolt when we put it all back together. Sweet, let's move on. So this should just come right up. See if that AC line is in the way. This little hose connector here is in the way. Maybe not. Maybe it's just my little hose clamp I left on. Let me hold that off real quick. There we go. Let's see if that gave us enough room. Okay, let me lower the engine just a little. Let me get this bottle out of the way. Manual didn't say anything about it, but just 10mm bolts. Okay, what's it stuck on? There we go. AC line connector right here. Let's move the whole bottle. There we go. Let's fish it out like that. Perfect. And actually that gives us a lot more room anyway. Maybe the manual did say something about that. I don't remember. Okay, now we have the bracket that bracket was bolted to. I think 15mm. I think those are better gotten from underneath. I want to see how many bolts are there. Just 3 bolts holding those on. Going underneath. Not too bad for that one. Oh my gosh. I know you can't see me, but that's 2. I got 1 more. These puppies are tight. Whew, got it. Okay, so got all 3. Perfect. Woo, big chunk of iron. Okay, what else is preventing me? We got those O2 sensors still to do. And here's a ground strap. Let's just go ahead and undo that. 10 mil or 8 mil. Okay, I can feel the bracket. It's an 8 millimeter. Okay, that's that bracket out of the way. And there should be one up front too, no? That's what they said. Let's see if there is. No, I don't see one up front, just that one in the back. So now it's just that series of 10 millimeter bolts all the way around. This bolt in this front corner, it's kind of tricky to see, but it's right above the alternator bolt. All right, I think I got all of them out. So now, pretty cool design. You could take one of your long bolts that came off the top here, and there is a spot right on the top that's threaded. We push that in, or thread it in, thread the other one in. And as we thread it in, it'll push on the heads and then pop it out. So if we got everything, it should be pretty quick and easy to separate. So far, so good. Now let's just double check one more time. Make sure we got all the bolts, nothing hidden. Okay, that side's off. This side, I did miss a bolt. Remove tension on this. We'll just get that one bolt. All right, that should be it. I probably don't even need these anymore, but let's tighten them up. There we go. I want a catch pan underneath. I forgot to mention that, just in case any oil comes out of the oil pan. So it's still this little hose bib here. I want to get that off real quick. These are like little hose pliers. They'll pinch that little connector. Okay, just this little thing out of the way. See what that does for us. Okay, nice. Let's check out the water pump. So right here is our water pump. This gear here, you can see 1 bolt for the pump right there. So we gotta pull off all our timing components in order to get to all the bolts and pull that thing out. We're getting close, we're almost there. All right, so I got you in a spot hopefully you can see and we won't be in each other's way. It looks like a lot of what's in here is 8 millimeter bolts. The first thing we wanna do is set the timing. Got the crank bolt back in the crank. We're gonna spin the engine clockwise. Let me show you what we look like. So if you take this and kind of make it like a straight edge, our dot right here kind of goes in line with it. And then same over here, kind of hard to see, but right here, here, let me turn the light on. There is another dot right here. You kind of want that in line, and that puts our crank. The keyway on the crank is about 11 o'clock, and then the dimple is about 4 o'clock-ish, if you can see it down there. So that's our timing. Top dead center, cylinder number 1. Oh, I thought I was recording. All I've done was taken off our VVT solenoid housings. There's 3 8 millimeter bolts on each one. They come off really easy, and then just set them somewhere nice and clean because we'll be reusing them. Okay, we're gonna try something. We're gonna deviate just a little from the manual, and if it doesn't work, then we'll both know. So the manual has you pull off one of these cams. We're gonna try to leave all the cams on. We're not gonna replace this secondary chain, just the primary chain, guides, and tensioners. It's possible that it's this guide right here that might give us a little issue with our water pump, but I think we can get the water pump out. I don't know, just looking at it, I think we can do it. I think we can bypass that one extra step. So we have the tensioner. And we have this tensioner guide. Now if the cams do move on you, it is okay. It's not gonna hurt anything. So let's move this. Okay, this guide is gone. And we have our big guide over here. This guide is gone. Our chain should be able to come right off. Okay, perfect. Chain gone. This little guy can pop out, I think. Out one little bolt. Now it's this one here. You can't get a socket on it, but maybe we can get a wrench. I have a little 8mm. Still just doing a little at a time. Okay, that's it. That's as far as it'll go, because then the cam's in the way. Now, can it come out enough? That would be the question. Can it come out enough? Let's pull our water pump bolts off. Still using the 8mm. Okay, that's it. Water pump bolts are out. This is a pretty lame design. They tell you just to use a towel. Coolant is gonna come out of the water pump. Just use a towel in the oil pan to catch as much as you can. But coolant's gonna get in the oil pan. I mean, it's unpreventable. So that's just, I don't know, interesting to me. I had to move my catch pan over, but there's a lot of coolant coming out of this thing. Okay, and it came out. Awesome. Got the water pump out. All right, we're gonna use a plastic scraper just to get any of that old gasket off the best that we can. Okay, just wipe it real good. So what happens when this O-ring for the water pump goes bad? It just leaks into your engine, and then what? It's kind of an interesting design. Okay, new Ford OEM pump from the dealer. Comes with a new O-ring. Put this on. See how it go, like that. There we go. It actually slips under really nicely. Okay, let's snug those down. All right, let's get a torque spec. All right, we have 89 inch-pounds for your first initial torque, and then 45 degrees after that. All right, now 45 degrees. Just estimate that's halfway in between 90. Okay, sweet, we can pull our rag out. Don't feel bad if coolant got in the oil pan. We're gonna wash it down really good with some brake clean. We're gonna drain the pan anyway. Get it all nice and flushed out. Oil floats, so the coolant will eventually fall to the bottom. So that's another thing, if you're doing this one day, you can wait till the next day and that coolant will have settled to the bottom of the oil pan. Okay, let's tighten this up so we don't forget. We'll work on getting our timing chain and components back on. Just curious if I can use a magnet to spin it. Yeah, there we go. It's actually a little easier than the wrench. So I'm just using the magnet to grab onto it and then turn it as if it was a wrench. And then now we'll just snug it up. Now you can't get it to torque, but it's not very much and you can just do a good guess. Okay. Now before we put the chain on, we're just gonna get all the old RTV off. It'll be easier with the chain off. Just get all this old gasket material. Doesn't have to be 100%. Just the best you can. RTV sticks pretty good to itself. You just want as smooth of a surface as possible. Nice flat surface is what you want. Okay. Just anywhere where the old gasket was. I'll fast forward through this, but there's also little spots in the middle. It looks like where the outer bracket went for our engine mount, those 3 bolt locations. There's just a little RTV we want to peel off of those locations as well. All right, now for our guide, we'll put this one on here. I'm gonna put on all the guides because they are all the same 89 inch-pounds. And then Ford puts these stickers on them. So just get as much off as you can, since you don't want any of this floating around the engine. I'm just gonna peel off this. This is where the chain rides. We'll try to get at least that stuff off. So this is our timing chain tensioner. This is our guide on this side. There's a long bolt and then a short bolt. The long bolt goes on the bottom and the short bolt goes up top. Let's see, I think I'm supposed to wait on this, but let me see if the chain will still fit. So on the chain there are colored links. These are copper, hopefully they show up. You'll see a yellow one there. There's 2 coppered links, that's for the crank. The single links are for the cam. So go ahead, slide this down. We'll just kind of get it semi-positioned. All right, perfect. Now, if you have to move the cam in one direction or the other, that's okay. Just give it a little twist or a spin. It's a T55 Torx if you have to get something on there to move it. But so far, so good. My tensioner arm fell off, so you can just wait to put that on. So we got the tensioner arm next, and then we'll just snug our tensioner down and double check all our timing marks. Brand new tensioner. All these are brand new parts from Ford. I put the top bolt in first and then we'll put the bottom bolt in. We'll just snug up our tensioners. Okay, before we torque anything, let's make sure our timing is correct. So now all we're worrying about is our colored link and our dot. Do our colored links and our dots line up? So here's the first. Pardon the mess on the floor. What we want to do is push this out. Just a flathead screwdriver a lot of times works. Let me get a ham. Here we go. Perfect. So that's it. Just comes out. And we want to press in our new one. Just wipe this real good. So brand new one from Ford, but it doesn't have to be. Velcro makes a really good gasket as well, or seal. So let's flip this over. Now there is no stop. Some timing covers have a little ridge that these will automatically stop when they're far enough down. So what we want to do is just tap it in. We'll use this as our apparatus and just slowly tap it in. Okay, getting there. We just want it to be flush. Okay, that's it. You can check the other side too to see if it goes in. Sometimes it'll leave like a witness mark, but this one, I think I wiped it all off. But anyway, it's in. That's all you have to do. So now, this surface, we just want to clean off really well. Ah, my microphone died. So what I was explaining was to get a clean rag, a little bit of brake clean sprayed on the rag, and wipe down all our mating surface where the RTV is gonna go. Nice, clean, oil-free surface, and we're almost ready to put our cover on. The next thing we wanna do is put our VVT solenoid housings back on. If you get them mixed up, they should only bolt on one way, but they're also stamped left hand, right hand. Put this on. Okay, like that. Put our bolt in. These 3 bolts are 89 inch-pounds. Okay, we are ready to install the front cover. All this gasket is RTV silicone. So we're just gonna put a little bead all the way down, put it in our little middle spots, and slap it on. We'll snug the bolts down, wait about an hour-ish before our final torque. So the bead doesn't have to be very big because these metal surfaces are nice machine tight, so that RTV will just squish and fill any imperfections as needed. So a 1/16 of a bead, perfectly fine. Now I went around each bolt hole. You may not have to do that. It's really getting to the inside of the bolt hole is the most important. It's pretty good. We'll get our middles. Okay, that's it. Now the trick will be getting it back in without accidentally hitting or scraping this RTV off. Okay, try number 1. Move all our stuff out of the way. Okay, nice. So far so good. Nice. Now it's fitting the dowels perfect. That went in really nice. Put our big bolts in. Now this is just all snug until that RTV kind of starts to squish out a little. You don't have to snug all of them, just a few key ones, and then we'll wait an hour. Okay, we are ready to torque everything down. Let me show you the sequence real quick. See if you can see that. Maybe not, I'll just throw it up on the screen. Our small bolts are first torqued to 89 inch-pounds, then a second pass to 18 foot-pounds. Our engine mount bracket is also torqued in 2 stages, 133 inch-pounds, and then a final 55 foot-pounds. Now our engine bracket bolt had Loctite on them, red Loctite, but the manual doesn't say anything about putting Loctite on before reinstallation. So I'll leave that up to you. Just putting that in now. I'll have to lower the engine to get that bottom one on. Get this last bolt. All right, we got the front cover back on. That is awesome. So now we're gonna go ahead, take another break, take a water break, get something to eat, whatever you need, take a nap. And when we come back, we'll finish putting the valve covers on doing an oil change, bleeding the coolant, taking it for a quick spin, and making sure that our water pump leak is fixed. See you later. All right, we are back. Let's button this bad boy up. I got the drain plug out. We're just letting it drain as much as possible while we continue with the rest of the installation. We're gonna tackle valve covers, then the intake manifold. I'll show you on the valve cover, spark plug tube seals, how to pop those out, put the new ones in, and how to prep the head for installation of the valve cover gasket. From here on, it'll be a little faster paced because we've taken things off. We kind of know where they go. We are gonna do 2 oil changes on this thing. So we're gonna top it off with oil, put a new filter on, run it for just super brief, do another oil change. I just don't like the idea that coolant even entered into the oil pan. Just a little paranoid about it, but it is by design. So having a little in there apparently isn't the worst thing in the world. But we're gonna do 2 oil changes. So let's get started. We'll do the valve covers first, then the intake manifold, then we'll button up the timing cover because we still have the crank pulley, the tensioner pulley, and the belt to put on that side of things, but we'll do that last. Sound like a plan? Let's get going. So on our valve cover, this is the right-hand side or the back of the engine. We're gonna just pop this off so we don't damage it at all. Now, our tube seals right here, we can pop them out from this direction. Grab a little screwdriver and a little hammy. There we go. Okay, so when you're popping it out this way, you just wanna be careful not to gouge the side of your valve cover. Now we'll just do the other 2. All right, so 1, 2, 3, out. Okay, so now putting them in, we're gonna put them in the exact same way we took them out from this side down. We got a 32 mil socket. This socket is the same size as your axle nut, so having it is a good idea anyway. It's a 32 millimeter, and that fits perfectly in here. We have a little silicone paste, dielectric grease as a lubricant. We'll just coat the outside of it and coat just a little bit inside the well here. We'll put our seal in, just like that. Fits perfectly in there, and we'll take a little hammer, smack it in. All right, the bottom's out. There's a little lip here, so you can't go any further than that. We'll come over, double check it. Looks good. We'll do the last one. Little silicone paste, drop it in, smash it down. That's it. Flip it over, looks good, and we're done. We also have our VVT solenoid seal here will pop out. So the exact same thing, pop it out. Just like that. They gave us a new one. This one here came in the kit. And this is just a Felpro kit, nothing special. And then we'll just pop that in. See if the same size works. It does. Looks good. Flip it over, make sure it's all the way down. Okay, our seals are done, looking good. Now we'll clean out our channel really well. Let's clean this whole surface off. We'll take some compressed air, blow it all out. Let's get it nice and clean for our new gasket. Now there is a blue and black gasket. We have these little protruding or extra fat spots here. That's where a little RTV will go, but on the head side. So those will go towards the front. And just put this whole thing in. Perfect, and we'll just push it down as far as it'll go. Nice. So this valve cover is done. We'll go ahead and do the exact same thing to the other valve cover, and then we'll hop onto the head side and get that prepped. Okay, so on the head, we're gonna do this front one first. This is the left-hand side. Pull all this off. Now we're just gonna wipe it good and clean. We don't want any of that grit in the engine. So when you wipe, you go from the inside out, inside out. And we'll just get the whole thing super clean. So we're gonna take a little bit of brake clean. And right where the timing cover meets the head, there's that little crack. We wanna just wipe that off. That's where we're gonna put a little RTV, is right in that seam. So there should be 2 on this side, 2 on the other side when we get to it. Doesn't take a lot, just a good dab. Because as the valve cover gets pressed, it'll all squish out. If we forget this step, it may end up being an oil leak in that spot. So now, what I like to do is just put a little bit of lubricant on our tube seals and our VVT solenoid seal, just so it slips on nice and easy. Especially with new seals, sometimes they could be a little stiff. Okay, and that's it. Try not to get any oil in these spots. If you touched it with oil, then we'll just get a little brake clean and wipe it off. You want it to stick. All right, Now let's just fish it in. All right, and just make sure nothing got pinched underneath. Get a flashlight. Like any electrical connectors, just make sure everything is free. Looks good. This little spot's gotta tighten here. Okay, looks good. All right, and then we'll just hand tighten all of these to get them started. Okay, we'll tighten them down and then we'll get a torque spec. Okay, let me give you some torque specs up front so I don't have to pause later. These are 89 inch-pounds, same with the other side, 89 all around. And our intake manifold is 89 plus 45 degrees. I believe that's it. For our high pressure pump, I recommend putting a little bit of oil on the threads of our metal line. Those 3 flare nuts, just a little bit of oil. Torque those down to 24 foot-pounds. Wait 10 minutes and then double check, make sure that they are 24 foot-pounds. I believe that's it. I still have to get these boots out of each spark plug well on this side and that side. And then it's just a matter of putting everything back together. All the electrical connectors plugged in, hoses. So our high pressure pump has a new seal that comes in our valve cover gasket kit. Okay, we'll pop this one off. And then 2 new O-rings as well. Let's wipe this clean. You can look at your O-rings if they still protrude quite a bit and they're still pretty flexible. You can go ahead and reuse the old ones if you'd like, but it's up to you. So we'll drop this in. Again, we'll walk it back on. Our pump bolts are 89 inch-pounds plus 45 degrees. Okay, and then 45 is half of 90. All right. Now for our fuel line, we want to coat these threads just a little bit with oil. I'm actually just going to put a little bit of oil on the nut itself. All right, now we can install it. I want to make sure that all our little flares are nice and clean. Okay. Now these are 24 foot-pounds, and then we'll wait 10 minutes and then double check that they're 24 foot-pounds. Okay, now let's work on our back cover. So same thing, we're just gonna wipe off the head. Okay, take a little bit of brake clean. Right here. A little bit of RTV. A little silicone paste. Okay, it went in a lot easier than it came out. All right, now getting our coil boots off. I've been using a needle nose, long pair needle nose like this. I already got the front 3 off, and you're just pinching. You're trying to get in there and pinch right on the side there, and then just tug on it, and then go to the other side, tug on it. And the front 3 came off. To get to the back 3, my needle nose total length was too long, so I cut off the handle just a little. About half of the handle is off. And that gives me enough space to get in underneath this right here. I got 1 out so far, so I just have 2 more to do. You can't see, so you're just kind of going by the feel. I think that's it. Yep. So there's the boot. I got 1 more to do. Okay, there it is. Got all the boots, none of them ripped or tore, so that's excellent. If yours do, that's okay. You can get a kit from the local auto parts store that just sells the boots only. So we'll get these boots back on the coil, and we can get our coils back in. All right, with our boots on our coils, we want to take a little silicone paste, a little dielectric grease. We'll put it right on the boot. That'll give it a little bit of lubricant. This will go around the spark plug and make it easier to come off in the future. All right, we got our PCV stuff that can go on. We also have our O2 sensor bracket I haven't put back on yet. It'll be a 10mm head if you get your bolts mixed up. Since we're over here, let's put our engine mount back on. Then we can take the jack out from underneath. And you can do this anytime. Anytime you have your bracket back on the engine cover, the front cover, we can put this on. Okay, we got our bolts. Now these are lock bolts. They have little nylon lock washers built into them. If you're reusing them, we want to put Loctite on the threads. Otherwise, get new bolts. Just a little blue Loctite. We're just gonna snug these down. Lower the engine. Let's make sure these line up. And then these had Loctite on them too, so I'm just gonna reapply. Now, if your bolt broke like mine, there's a number on the head, 10.9. That's the hardness of the bolt or the strength of the steel. We wanna make sure that our replacement bolt is also 10.9. Hopefully you can see that. And then this has a really fat head on it, so it's like a built-in washer. So you wanna make sure that we get a nice fat washer for this as well. And then you want the length to be just about the same size. A little longer is okay, but we definitely don't want too short. M12 is the size of the bolt. Snug these down and then we'll get a torque for everything. The smaller nuts are 46 foot-pounds and our bigger bolts are 66 foot-pounds. I'm just getting our little coolant piece here. We're gonna pop off this white little retainer. There we go. This little retainer, we're gonna put it on this first. Put it inside, there we go. And we're just gonna put a little dielectric grease inside for that O-ring. Doesn't take a whole lot, just a little. Now we'll put it on and it should snap. Perfect. We have our ground strap here we can put back on. Get our coolant bottle, get that through. Now in each coolant hose that we put back as well, I'm gonna put just a little bit of this dielectric grease. Not a lot, just enough to coat it. Okay, that's for our throttle body. Let's get our 3 front ignition coils on and then we can start laying this harness over and plugging it in. Okay, so I think I'm about ready for the manifold. We're gonna do the same thing to the manifold that we've been doing and just wipe it off real good. Now there's no RTV that goes in here, just the gaskets. All right, our intake manifold. Flip it over, we have our gaskets. This is optional to replace. If they are protruding up above and they still feel pretty flexible, you can go ahead and reuse them. We will pop all of these out, just like that. So they just drop in. So we made a mistake. I thought the Fel-Pro gasket kit came with all the seals. It does not, we're short 2. It gives you these seals, but these are not the seals that we need. So we are shy these 2 seals. These are water jacket or water port seals. I want to see if they are in stock. If not, that kind of halts our progress for now. So if you have the Fel-Pro gasket set, just keep that in mind. These 2, leave them in. That's not part of the kit. So it looks like if you get the Mahle set, M-A-H-L-E, that set comes with everything. So we're getting that coming. In the meantime, we'll set this aside and see what else we could just tinker with in the meantime. So we're gonna hop over to our belt tensioner and our crank pulley. The belt tensioner, those 3 bolts are 97 inch-pounds. And then we'll put our crank pulley on. That's 89 foot-pounds. That just ensures that it's sucked in all the way. Then we'll back it off. And then 37 foot-pounds will be our initial torque plus 90 degrees. All right, for our crankshaft pulley, we're gonna put a little silicone paste just right there so it slides in right over our seal perfectly. Just a little bit of a lubricant. We're gonna slide that in. There is no keyway, so we don't have to worry about any RTV anywhere. You just slide that in, okay? Now you need to install a new bolt. These bolts are torque to yield just like a head bolt. They're only used one time, but we'll reuse our washer. You'll notice our bolt isn't long enough to get started. So what we can do, take that 32 mil that you used for the valve cover, we'll just set it right there with a little extension and we'll tap it to get it started. Doesn't have to go in very far, just enough to catch threads. Maybe just a little farther. Now we are so close. I'm gonna use just a little thinner washer in the old bolt. We're just gonna suck it in a little. That's probably enough. It's a new bolt, yeah, perfect. Okay, so now we want 37 and then 90. Okay, now I'm gonna mark the bolt straight up and down, and then our 90 is when it'll be horizontal. There we go, perfect. Our crank pulley's in, our tensioner is in. Now we're gonna put on our belt. All right, our Mahle gaskets came, and it came with the O-rings we needed. Let's get our intake manifold and just drop them in. It's unlike Fel-Pro to be missing important components. Okay. Perfect. Now we'll lay this in. Just making sure nothing's pinched. Okay, I think that's it. Let's go ahead and bolt down our manifold. Big ones go on our thermostat side. All right, now these were 89 plus 45. All right, plus 45. Got my socket. There it is. Whoever invented magnets did a good job. Okay, so now let's work on getting our coolant hoses back on. All right, I'm gonna button everything up off camera. There's really nothing left that's technical. It's just making sure all your hoses are connected, all your electrical connectors are plugged in, and that's it. So once I got all this connected, we'll go ahead, connect our battery cable, and then we'll be ready to fire it up. All right, I think I got everything back together. Airbox in, everything's plugged in. I checked, double checked. Looks like we're good. So on our coolant, we want to just fill it up just past that crease and just keep filling it up until eventually it settles and it stops lowering. So that'll be full. What we want to do when we go inside, we want to start it up. Of course, we'll run through a process that I like to do, especially when the engine has been pulled apart, timing components have been pulled apart. We'll go through a little procedure. After that, the manual has you go ahead, rev the RPMs until the rev limiter kicks at about 3,500 RPM. Hold it there for roughly a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, and then let it idle for just a second and then turn it off. Double check. So that'll get the initial purge. We want to make sure we don't have the heater on or any of the climate control stuff on, just off, and that'll give that initial burp, that initial purge. Then we'll just let it settle for a little bit, top it off as needed, and then we will start it up, let it idle. We can flutter the RPMs if you want, but we want to get it to operating temperature. And then we want our cooling fan to kick on. That lets us know that our thermostat is wide open. And then we'll kick up the RPM again, 3,500, do that for about a minute, then let it idle for 30 seconds, shut it off, let it cool down, double check, and then we'll bring it back up to operating temperature one more time, flutter a few times, let it idle, and that should be pretty close. The manual says do it a few times just to be 100% sure, but that should do the trick. I already have it topped off with oil. That's important before we start it. And let's go inside. I'll show you what I like to do just to get that oil flowing, oil circulating before that initial start. Plus, because we had the timing components off, if there's any issue, any unforeseen thing, then we'll catch it right away. Let's hop in the vehicle. So in the vehicle, we want to put the gas pedal all the way to the floor. That puts it in clear flood mode, so it will not start. The engine will just turn over at normal cranking speed, about 200-300 revolutions per minute. A lot slower than a 1,500 RPM straight start. So we'll go ahead and push the button. The vehicle should not start, it'll just crank. Okay, everything sounded normal. Nothing crazy with the engine, no rattles, no clanks. So now we'll go ahead, take the foot off the gas, and then it should start up. Nice. Now let's go ahead and turn it off. I'm gonna go out, we're just gonna look for any fuel leaks around the high pressure fuel line real quick before we run it for too long. All right, so it looks like we only have access to this with our eyes. Everything else is too tucked under, and it has this little vibration, little heat thing here. So we can't see under for the other fuel line connections. That's okay, we could just keep our nose ready for any fuel smells. But this one is nice and tight. Vehicle started. We'll run through the procedure off camera, but that is it. All right, this completes this big repair job. We'll take it for a good spin, make sure that there are no coolant leaks anywhere. We'll check the oil. Of course, we're gonna change the oil one more time. That's just for my own peace of mind. It just feels wrong to have coolant in where the oil's supposed to go. So that's just me, you do you. All in all, not too bad of a job. There are a few tricky spots like that broken bolt, but hopefully that's not common. Hopefully on your vehicle, it'll just buzz right out, no problem. Other than that, pretty straightforward, just follow the repair manual. Now we did do a little bypass with the cam phasers. We didn't have to take any of the cam sprockets off. We can just get that bolt behind that one, and that got our pump off. But if you are wanting to replace that secondary chain, you wanna pull those cam gears off. I believe it was that T55 should break it off. They do have those cam holding tools. We did not use them, but if you want to, it'd be a lot easier to get those cam bolts off if you have those lock tools. The other thing is cam bolt, they're not reusable. Crank bolt is not reusable. So we want to just toss those. They're torque to yield, same as the head bolts on a head. Those are torque to yield, one-time use. Same with the cam and crank bolts. So just one thing to keep in mind. Oh, Felpro, you fell short, buddy. Usually Felpro is an awesome brand, but there were a few times where it just didn't quite work out. One was with the intake manifold gaskets, missing those 2 water ports. And then with the valve cover gasket, the little seal for the VVT solenoid, those were also wrong. They didn't work. They were a little too small diameter on the inside, so it didn't fit over. So that's just one thing to keep in mind as well. My recommendation is get everything from the dealer. All your gaskets, all your seals from the dealer. Yes, Fel-Pro is an awesome brand. They make awesome seals, but in this instance, they were just a little lacking. So something to keep in mind. Other than that, you got this. Any questions, comments, post down below. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. See you on the next one.